Both Sister Sherry and Sister Rhonda have told us to know the future, you got to understand the past. Sister Sherry specifically said you can't understand the future if you don't understand the past. It's one of the first things the Lord told me about understanding last day's events. If you want to know and understand the future, you got to know the past. Sister Rhonda said you have to know the past to understand what's taking place in the present. Now, in the past, Sister Sherry told us that Father told her about this 10-day process. He said, for 10 days, I will gather my people, and then I will shut the door. So this study is going to ponder this, looking at lost texts and also contemplating Bible scriptures, and seeing if we can match the past and the present to a 10-day process. It's my initial thought that maybe this kicks off with the 15th day of the first month, when the Exodus began, which would be April 4th on the Gregorian calendar, and pagan Easter. It's also day number 1290 from September 23rd, 2017. Now, if so, it would mean that the 10th day would be the 24th day of the first month in the matching of the crossing of the Red Sea. So let's first look at this 15th day of the first month, the month of Abib, on God's calendar. See what historically took place. And if we turn to this day in history, we read in Leviticus 23:6 that this is the day that on the 15th day of the same month, first month, the feast of unleavened bread unto the Lord. 7 days you must eat unleavened bread. And I feel this is a tremendous way to kick off the 10 days, if so, because in Matthew 16:6 we're told that Yahushua told them, take heed and beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and the Sadducees. And the ones that are found at Mount Zion with Yahushua, following in his first fruits, are the ones that we're told in Revelation 14:5, the 144,000, that they have no guile in their mouth because they are without fault before the throne of God. And again, Sister Sherry has told us that the elect are truth seekers, all of them. And that's why there's no guile found in them. You know, one of the things the Bible says about the elect is there's no guile found in them. They're not embroiled with false doctrines, false apostasies and witchcrafts and all that stuff, because the Lord has pulled them out of it because they were lovers of the truth. Because we have learned to sit at his feet and pray for the truth in all things. Numbers 33:3 reminds us that this is the day that the Israelites departed from Ramesses in the first month, on the 15th day of the first month, on the morrow after the Passover. They went out with a high hand, exalted power in the sight of all the Egyptians. Now, this also happens to be the date of April 4th in the Gregorian calendar, and the pagan celebration of Easter. Now, back on September 23rd, 2017, in the constellation of Virgo and surrounding it, there seemed to be a match to what Revelation 12:1 and 2 was describing. Now, if we take that date of September 23rd, 2017, and go forward to the date of April 4th, 2021, lo and behold, we see a result of 1,200 290 days. Now that number of days should ring a bell. For in Daniel 12:11 we read, "And from the time that the daily sacrifice shall be taken away, and the abomination that maketh desolate set up, there shall be 1,290 days." And if you follow gematria at all, Jewish gematria, 1,290, we find warriors, the bride and groom of heaven, key of the bottomless pit, the great harvest, birth of Venus. Remember, Venus equals EP. And then we take the date of the 15th day of the first month, 115, and put that into Jewish gematria. We find man-child. So now that we've shown the first day of possibly this 10-day process, the significance, the past history thereof, let's go forward to the 10th day of this possible 10-day process. See what that shows. So going forward the 10 days, this would bring us to the 24th day of the month Abib on God's calendar. And would also match with the Gregorian calendar of April 13th. And this 24th day of the month of Abib has significance in history, as I believe that it is the day in which the Israelites, with Moses parting the Reed Sea, went ahead and went forth on dry land, and then the waters came down onto the Egyptians. So now let's start by examining the evidence of why I believe that this is the case. The Israelites crossing the Reed Sea on the 24th day of Abib. So first we're going to turn to the book of Jasher in chapter 81. Verse 6, we're told that they started the pursuit on the third day, since all the Egyptians buried their slain for 3 days. 15th, 16th, and 17th. So then in verse 10 we're told on the third day, the 17th, after the Egyptians had buried their firstborn, many men rose up from Egypt and went after Israel early in the morning. Now in turning to the book of Jubilees, we can read chapter 48, 15 through 16. It reads, "And on the 14th day, 15th, and on the 16th, and on the 17th, and on the 18th, the prince Mastema was bound and imprisoned behind the children of Israel, that he might not accuse them. And on the 19th, we let them loose, that they might help the Egyptians and pursue the children of Israel." Now, although it says that on the 19th we let them loose, it doesn't mean that was when the Egyptians left to pursue the children of Israel, but instead we find out that was just when the Egyptians caught up to the children of Israel. Well, I want to give you a little bit of history about Mastema. He was the chief of spirits, Tanate, who before the time of Moses and the Exodus was the chief of the unclean demons that began to lead astray the children of the sons of Noah, make to err and destroy them. 1. And we further read in Jubilees 10, 7 through 9, that Noah and his sons were bade to bind all these spirits, but that Mastema came and said, "Lord Creator, let some of them remain before me, and let them hearken to my voice, and do all that I say unto them. For if some of them are not left to me, I shall not be able to execute the power of my will on the sons of men. For these are for corruption and leading astray before my judgment, for great is the wickedness of the Son of Man. So Father said, let the 10th part of them remain before him, and let 9 parts descend into the place of condemnation. So when Jubilees 48:15-16 tells us we let them loose, the we was the 10th part of the spirits that was led by Mastema to help the Egyptians. So Jasher 81:13-14 tells us the same story of it being on the 5th day of Israel leaving. 5th day being the 19th day of the first month. This was when the Egyptians caught up with the children of Israel. Thus, from what I can tell, the journey from Egypt to Harrow is a 2-day journey. Not sure if they traveled through the night or not. Remember, on the 3rd day, 17th, after the Egyptians had buried their firstborn, they rose up from Egypt and went after Israel. On the 19th, they caught up with them. So the Egyptians arrived at Harrow, trying to persuade the children of Israel to return to Egypt. Upon getting a negative response, they engaged the children of Israel in battle, and many of the Egyptians perished and then fled back to Egypt. Today's 20th, 21st. To tell Pharaoh, the children of Israel have fled, will no more return to Egypt. Jasher 81:18. So the Lord strengthened the hearts of all the Egyptians to pursue the Israelites. The Lord desired to overthrow the Egyptians in the Red Sea. Number 21. Every Egyptian, except women and children, went and pursued the children of Israel. 2 days. 2nd, 23rd. Based upon the cycle of 2 days of travel from Egypt, overtook them encamping by the sea. 4th, beside the Harrow before Baal-Zephon. And this is indeed what we read in Exodus 14:9. When Pharaoh and his men drew nigh, the angel of God, which went before the camp of Israel, removed and went behind them. And the pillar of the cloud went from before their face and stood behind them. And it came between the camp of the Egyptians and the camp of Israel. It was a cloud and darkness to them, but it gave light by night to these, so that the one came not near the other all the night. That would be the night of the 24th of Abib. Exodus 14:19-20. The children of Israel went into the midst of the sea upon the dry ground, and the waters were a wall unto them on their right hand and on their left. Exodus 14:22. The Egyptians pursued and went in after them into the midst of the sea, even all Pharaoh's horses, his chariots, and his horsemen. Exodus 14:23. And it came to pass that in the morning watch the Lord looked unto the host of the Egyptians through the pillar of fire and of the cloud, and troubled the host of the Egyptians. Exodus 14:24. 25th morning of 25th of Abib. So on that morning of the 25th of Abib, Moses stretched forth his hand over the sea. He returned to his strength. Morning appeared. The Egyptians in the midst of the sea. Exodus 14:27. Now the Song of Moses doesn't seem to be just a song for the redeemed Israelites. Exodus 15:13 reads as follows: Thou in thy mercy hast thou led forth the people which thou hast redeemed. Thou hast guided them in thy strength until thy holy habitation. Now let's look at the facts. On the day of the 25th, the day when they sang that Song of Moses first time, they were heading to the Promised Land. They had just crossed the Reed Sea and heading to the Promised Land, but they weren't there yet. Yet in Exodus 15:13, we read that they're singing about being guided unto thy holy habitation. But yet they haven't arrived at the Promised Land yet, so they're singing about a holy habitation that they haven't arrived to yet. Could it have a double meaning to the future? John 14:3 tells us of that future place, where it says, And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you unto myself, that where I am, there ye may be also. And is it any surprise that both Exodus 15 and Revelation 15 talks about the Song of Moses? In Revelation 15:3 it says, And they sing the song of Moses, the servant of God, and the song of the Lamb. So two songs saying, Great and marvelous are thy works, Lord God. So what and when is the song of the Lamb sung in the Song of Moses? Revelation 14:1 and 3 says, A lamb stood on the Mount Zion, and with him 144,000 having his Father's name written in their foreheads. And they sung, as it were, a new song before the throne and before the four beasts and the elders. And no man could learn that song but the 144,000 which were redeemed from the earth. And so the 25th of Abib would be the timing of when first fruits are harvested. It's the night before the start of the Feast of Weeks, first fruits, which then starts on the 26th day of the first month. That's when you start counting the Omer on God's calendar. So, 24th would then end the 10-day process. 25th of the first month comes to the threshing floor of the temple of Yahushua as his first fruits. Sing some songs on Mount Zion. 26th, the Feast of First Fruits begins. The counting of the Omer to the Feast of Weeks on the 15th day of the third month. And this works out as 5 days left in the first month, 26th through the 30th, 30 days in the second month, and 15 days in the third month. 50 days altogether to Pentecost. And so that you don't take my word on the 26th day of the first month, starting the counting of the Omer and the Feast of First Fruits, Feast of Weeks. Let's turn to the Dead Sea Scrolls, fragment 1 of 4Q325 and then 326. What we find under the priestly courses, it's saying that the 25th, which is a Sabbath, falls to Jedediah. Also during that course's duties falls the festival of the barley on the 26th. Then on the 25th day in it, Sabbath, on the 26th day in it, Feast of Rain after the Sabbath, in the first wing, which has 30 days. Now, Exodus 19:4 refers back to what we just read about, what happened to the Egyptians. When Father tells Moses, "You've seen what I did unto the Egyptians, how I bare you on eagle's wings and brought you unto myself." Likewise, we hear mention of wings of an eagle. In Revelation 12:14, it says, "And to the woman were given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness, into her place, where she is nourished for a time and times and a half a time from the face of the serpent." I pray that this will be